So, Leafs Nation, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the fact that Simone Benoit is not in the lineup? Do you want to talk about the fact that Mitch Marner has a banged up knee? Austin Matthews' wrist is taped more than a prize fighter heading into the ring? Or do you want to talk about Brad Treliving not living up to the expectations of Leaf fans on one side or the other? For me, what I want to talk about is the fact the Leafs did what they could with what they had and were not willing to pay the prices that needed to be paid to get the guys they wanted. They were not simply going out and spending an Easton Cowan, a Fraser Minton, or a first-round pick for some team that was trading the same guy away for less. So if you want them to blow out the entire cupboards for guys that were going for less of an asking price than they were being asked for the Leafs, I'm not for it. I'll tell you that right off the hop, and I'm happy with what the Leafs have absolutely right now. For me, that's where I'm at. If Matthews' wrist is banged up, sit him. If Marner's knee is screwed, sit him. But one guy you don't sit is the milkman who's been bringing the hits, bringing the passion, and bringing the energy on a night in and night out basis. That is a guy that's a heart and soul the boys rally around and the boys absolutely love, not to mention the fans. Sitting him is ludicrous. At this time of the season, you are not trying to figure out what Timothy Liljegren is. You already know. It's not now the trade deadline's gone. He can fit into his role and feel himself. He should have been feeling himself 30 freaking games ago. Simone Benoit works. He blocks shots. He hits the body. He does what needs to be done on a night in, night out basis, and he does not complain. Why is he not in the lineup? Because you want to work in Timothy Liljegren. He's had, 5 years to absurdly take a spot, and he hasn't. This is not the time. You're about to face the Bruins in the playoffs, who by the last time I checked, they hit hard, they play hard, much like Simone Benoit. Sheldon Keefe, give your eyes a shake. Your head is stuck, and it's somewhere I don't even want to say. But that's how I'm starting it. Go ahead, Clarky. How's your night?
Hi. Yeah, no, hi James. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting couple of weeks here with the trade deadline and everything going on, and we haven't really had a show in a while, so I guess there's a lot to catch up on. And the rant was wonderful, a wonderful way to kick that off. So well done there, sir. As usual, you always bring the heat with the rants, and I always appreciate that's about you, James. But one thing I will say is that I do. Agree with you 100% that I think the moves that they made reflected what they had available to them and what was available on the market. And I just think that, and I said this, I tweeted this out as well, but I just kind of said like, who was actually available, who actually moved that the Leafs didn't get, that if they would have paid the price it would have taken to get said player, would have moved the needle. And I put Chris Tanev on there, which I think maybe he would have been the one that would have maybe moved the needle a little bit. But the price with the Leafs, for the Leafs, the price that the Leafs would have had to have paid with the Brad Treliving tax for Calgary, I think that price would have been higher. And I just think that it wouldn't have been worth it at the end of the day with the price that the Leafs would have had to have paid.
Brad Treliving basically said F you to the league. If you
Yeah,
want to put a Leafs tax on guys, I'm not paying it.
yeah,
And I'm glad that he did that. He didn't
yeah,
doobus it out. He said, I'm
yeah.
not paying it.
Exactly. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. And if you get a chance to talk to almost any former executive, and I've been lucky enough to have spoken to a few of them over my days, but anyone who's been in a war room or a trade room or something along those lines, a lot of them will tell you that the best moves are often the ones that you don't make. And it's hard for fans to really grasp that concept of that it's hard it's the best moves are the ones that don't get made, but usually long term, the evidence and everything comes out from that. And you see at the end of the day that sometimes the moves that weren't made were the ones that would have cost you way more than they were worth. And it wouldn't have actually improved your team as much as everybody thinks so, or the perception wouldn't have improved that much. So again, the guys who were moved that the Leafs didn't get. Noah Hannafin, that price was ridiculous. Not ridiculous, it's a good player, but that price was not attainable for the Leafs. So let's forget about Noah Hannafin. Thomas
Thomas
Hertl,
Hurdle.
that price was not attainable for the Leafs, so let's not worry about him. Those are the two guys who truly would have probably moved the needle quite a bit. But neither of those guys are available. And Hurdle's going to be injured to the playoffs anyways, almost to the playoffs. So he wouldn't have helped the Leafs in the regular season, and who knows how healthy he's actually going to be when he comes back. He's a long-term project for the Vegas Golden Knights because let's be honest, he's under contract for a long time. That's a move that they made, yes, for maybe some small short-term benefit, but also for a very long-term outlook for this team. They needed a centerman for a long time. It's Eichel, Hurdle, and Chandler Stevenson now for the next however long. That's a pretty good trio, if you ask anybody. So, again, it's just there was a lot of fringe guys moved. I think there was some fringe guys that got a little hyped up that fans were upset that the Leafs didn't go out and get. But at the end of the day, Joel Edmondson is a guy who has played big minutes, has a ton of penalty kill time under his belt in his career. He's only 30 years old. He's not over the hill yet. And you know what? Not that long ago, he was a $5 million defenseman. People seem to forget that because he's had a down year due to injuries and stuff in between that. But he was, for the Montreal Canadiens, a top four, top pair, $4.5, $5 million defenseman not very long ago, who had a really huge impact on the series that the Leafs lost to the Montreal Canadiens a few years back. That's not that long ago. He's only 30. I think he's going to play a nice role for the team, and he wasn't that expensive in the long term. Ilya Lyubushkin, you can tell already he fits into this roster for whatever reason. In the short sample size he's been
Morgan
back,
Riley.
for whatever reason, it makes no sense. It makes no sense by any chart, by any statistic, that he works with Morgan Riley, but he works better than anyone else.
Morgan Riley to be the freewheeling guy he needs to be, while Lyubushkin patrols from the red line and back, which makes Riley be able to jump up and do his thing. And by the way, Lyubushkin also jumping up in the rush and creating some offense too.
Sure. And you know what? He's a right shot. They really needed a right shot. And again, at the end of the day, the price wasn't outrageous. It's not going to kill the franchise in the long term. They were able to keep their first round pick. They were able to keep all of their prospects except for Dmitry Ovchinnikov, which might come back to bite them in like 3 years. But I don't think we should be sitting here sweating over losing Dmitry Ovchinnikov. I think we're okay. And at the end of the day, as a Western Hockey League guy myself, I saw Connor Dewar in junior hockey. He's a very solid player. We talk about Noah Gregor. He's kind of in the mold of Noah Gregor in terms of speed. He's a little undersized, but he's gritty, and he's a forechecker. He's going to be a great penalty killer for the team, better than Noah Gregor. So I'll say that. He was a big penalty killer for Minnesota, and I just think that he's going to be a nice fit. And I didn't really get a chance to see his first game as much as everybody else, but I'm excited to see how he fits onto this roster. And again, James, one of the biggest things that they needed was penalty kill help, and they got Joel Edmondson, Ilya Lyubushkin, and Connor Dewar. That was a tidy piece of work. I know it wasn't flashy, it wasn't sexy.
We didn't need flashy.
But we didn't need. Now, here's what I'll say: we didn't need flashy. We already have flashy. We have the big boys. They should be doing more than they currently are. That was why Brad Treliving said, it's internal now. The guys in the room who we have also need to be better, and that's part of our trade deadline, is that going forward, who we have also need to be better. We got some pieces that'll help what we needed. We have some physicality. We got some penalty kill guys. Now the guys who we're paying big money to actually do the big jobs need to step up and be better at what they're already doing, and that's a very important part of all this.
Let me tell you this. The Leafs augmented the lineup where it needed to be tweaked. Did not need to be overhauled. Did not need to be redone. This team has good pieces. They needed to figure out where their deficiencies were and attack it, which they did. Edmondson, Lyubushkin, and Dewar, all penalty kill guys, all guys who can clear the front of your net, all guys who are responsible where in their own end of the ice, which the Leafs needed to be better at. And this will allow them to do so. Not to mention the fact, the guy you would go out and get as a fringe good pickup, a Cali Yarncroke type. Oh, guess what? He just came back from injury. He hasn't been here for a couple months. So it's like a free agent pickup. Mitch Marner now on the shelf for a little bit. Good, let him rest. That'll be like a good pickup because you'll get a fully healthy Mitch Marner. Same thing with anybody else who is not able to go. Jake McCabe banged up. Let him rest. You'll get these guys back. But they have found money in Bobby McMahon. Shout out to the guy who just signed a 2-year extension, by the way, at $1.35 million per. This guy has stepped up and scored. And guess what? It came off the fact he was supposed to be scratched and scored a hat trick, has never looked back. Love that for the guy. But what Brad Treliving did with this Maple Leafs roster is he said, the guys that are here will get the job done. I will give you what you need. Penalty kill help, no problem. Here you go. Ilya Samsonov here, Joel Wool here, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, Riley. Get it done. Guys you chase after that you would want, Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, Matthew Nyes. These players are already here. You don't need to go get them. They're already a part of this roster.
Cali Yarncroke came back from injury.
That's what I just said. Yeah, he's back from injury after 2 months. He's here. So this team is ready to go. So stop beating the drum that Brad Treliving was dumb and didn't do this and didn't get your favorite shiny new toy. We have a lot of fun toys here on this roster. They need to step up, or show themselves out. Because this needs to be their team, not anybody else's.
And one other thing I will say too is, let's be honest, is that the moves that most fans probably want to make or wanted to happen are probably summer moves anyways, guys. Like, these are types of moves that are going to be made at the draft. And guess what now? The Leafs can go into the draft after, Brad Treliving's first playoffs with this roster under his belt, and he can say, okay, we clearly know the deficiency. We clearly know what we need. We now have $16.5 million in cap space. We have 7 open roster spots. That's what I saw today. Somebody did a report. They have, I think it was they needed 2 forwards, 4 defensemen, and a goalie. I think is they have
goalie. Yep, you're right.
So there are 7 roster spots open. They have $16.5 million in cap space opening up. Now you would assume that 2 of those guys will be Domi and Bertuzzi, either coming back or not. They'll let that happen. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that now they are going into the draft without depleting all of their top assets. They have a first-round pick that in this upcoming draft that they can now trade. They still have their top prospects that they can still trade. And now they have cap space in the summer that they can utilize to add guys that actually cost. I'm talking a Colton Parayko type of player. I'm talking, guys like that. That can be done in the summer when teams have way more flexibility to mess around with stuff, and they want to make moves at the draft. That's where we're going to see the move that everyone wants, and that's where Brad Treliving is going to strike, if he's going to strike at all. This trade deadline was too difficult, James. This is the 3rd or 4th year in a row now with essentially a flat cap. Teams are running out of creativity. It's just there aren't as many moves to be made right now, even though there were some moves made, but there aren't as many because teams are running out of retention spots. They're running out of caps or draft picks, like low draft picks to just like throw around for double retention. Like, this has been going on now for the 3rd or 4th year in a row. Teams are just running out of that energy. The cap's going up. The cap space is going up in the summer. They still have major assets. The summer is where this move is going to be made that everyone's dreaming about.
Listen, here's the thing too, okay? 3 p.m. Eastern. Trade deadline is done. March 8th, 2024. Everybody puts their pencils down, pushes their tests in. The 16 teams that took the test will then be graded throughout the playoffs. And that is where you will find out who made a passing grade. But I'll tell you this, many a team have stepped up and made many different changes to their roster, and it doesn't work when you start bringing in big names who have to fill big roles. And there's also reasons why goaltenders usually don't move around the deadline, because it's way too hard to learn a new system and all the checks and balances. So imagine adding all of these players like Vegas just did, and then adding back everyone coming back off of IR and saying, hey, mesh together and figure it out with no practices and no downtime, because you go from the regular season almost right into the playoffs. and
Yeah.
you're bringing guys off of LTIR. But we'll get off the trade deadline. We'll get off that stuff in tree living. One thing for me, I'm really hot under the collar about is Simone Benoit sitting. This to me is just
Yeah.
ridiculous. This guy, there's no more he can do to show A, loyalty, but B, style of play, consistency, whatever you want out of this guy. He brings it every night. He's not the biggest dog in the fights either, but he still tries to chuck knuckles and protect teammates. He throws big hits. He does everything that we want a stay-at-home prototypical defenseman to do. But now he's riding the pine because you want to give Lily a shot. Clark, what is happening here? Why?
Yeah, this one's a tough one, and I will say that I have a bit of a tinfoil hat theory about this one. Obviously, we just talked about it. They added Joel Edmondson at the deadline and Ilya Lyubushkin right before the deadline. I'm a firm believer. Well, they also had Mark Giordano kind of during that. I know Edmondson was added after Mark Giordano got hurt, but after Lyubushkin got acquired, they still had Mark Giordano. So if you think about it, Gio got hurt, and I think there was a quick replacement made with Joel Edmondson. But I'm also wondering if there wasn't something bigger at play where they were thinking that they were going to maybe be able to move one of their guys out, and that Timothy Liljegren could have been that guy. It might have been TJ Brody. I'm not entirely sure, but I have a feeling that something was like 90% done, and they're like, okay, we got our six defensemen now are going to be this guy that we're adding, and Simone Benoit's in that group, et cetera, et cetera. But it didn't happen, and now there's a good problem, James. I'm going to say this. It's a good problem to have because you know as much as anybody, and everybody watching probably knows this, but when it comes to the playoffs, you're going to need, if you're actually serious about making a run and you actually go on a run, you're probably going to need anywhere from 10, 11, 12 defensemen
Oh,
at some
definitely. You're
point.
going to need depth for sure.
So having Simone Benoit, and I know it hurts. I know it hurts because he's your boy, and I get it. And he's a lot of people's boys. He's a fan favorite for a reason. But having him sit, as hard as it is to him not have him play, it's a really, really good problem to have at this time of year. And to have a guy that we want in the lineup so badly, just sitting there waiting for his chance to get back in, this could pay off huge down the road. That's all I'm going to say because I totally agree with you. It sucks that he can't play.
Listen, yeah, I like this guy so much, and I think him and McCabe are going to be the shutdown pair, especially against a team like the Boston Bruins. You also then bring in Bush, and you have Edmondson, so you have some size and physicality across the board, and you allow Mo to do his Mo things, and you just enjoy it. But we'll see what happens. Another guy that is in that spot, that aura of I need to play, give me a shot, what do I need to do, is Nick Robertson. And I made the tweet last week. He got sent down, and I said, damn sure this guy isn't happy about this. And everybody got on my ass saying, hey, listen, what are you making up stories? What are you talking out of turn for? And what does Nick Robertson drop yesterday? No, I'm not happy. I was not happy about it. I can see that it's a business move, but I don't like it. I'm not happy. I want to be here. So for me, that's twofold. This guy, A, wants to be in the lineup, but B, has the passion that burns to want to help this team win and be a part of it. And for me, I look at the roster today at practice and say, why is Nick Robertson not getting an opportunity in the top six unless you are saying you're in my doghouse for what you said in the media? For me, this is an opportunity with Marner going down for him to step into a top six role and allow him to put up or shut up. Show me what you're talking about, kid. Show me what you're bringing. Because this is the opportunity you've been wanting. Marner's out. You're an offensive guy. You can move the biscuit. Get in there with Matthews. Show me what you got.
Yeah.
And then if he doesn't, then you have all the rope in the world to say, Nick Robertson, we gave you every bit of leeway, but you didn't do it. But right now, this guy, I have no problem with him whining or complaining or whatever you want to call it. To me, this is a guy trying to show you he wants to be a part of this. And he doesn't like the fact he's putting in every moment of a pro and still getting sent down.
Totally. And I understand that 100%. And I mean, in terms of numbers, like he actually has put up some decent numbers this year for the role that he's played. So I'll give you
Not
that.
far behind a guy named Matthew Nyes, who we all
Exactly.
love.
Yeah, we all love Matthew Nyes. My dad even said last night I was talking to him. He's like, I love that Matthew Nyes. I'm like, yeah, he's good.
He's a nice
He'll
player.
And he's going to be, I said this, I think Matthew Nye's, his moment's going to be like his big breakout moment is going to be like not next season, but the one after. I feel like he's going to have a huge year. Like he's just growing into his body. He's gaining confidence. He's gaining strength. And I just think by like 2 years from now, Matthew Nye's is going to be an undeniable top six player. But that's a whole different story. We're not talking about him. We're talking about Nick Robertson. Now, here's for anybody who might have missed it. The lines at practice today were Bertuzzi, Matthews, Yarncroke, Domi, Tavares, Nylander, Nyes, Kampf, McMahon, Holmberg, Dewar, Reeves, and Gregor and Robertson were extras. So there's definitely a spot in there somewhere for Nick Robertson. I'm wondering if they didn't want to put him on the fourth line for obvious reasons. I mean, Holmberg is a much more valuable player to have on the fourth line than Nick
Sid
Robertson, I will
Reeves,
say.
put him on the first line.
Yeah, I hear you, but they're playing Philly, and you know how Philly can be sometimes on a, you never know. You might want Ryan Reeves out there just being the policeman. I kind of don't mind it, just with the history with Philly and everything, and some of the guys they have over there. I don't mind it, just
Oh,
having him out
come off
there.
it, man. If Nick Robertson's going to be an everyday NHLer, he's going to have to be able to deal with this crap. I
Yeah,
get
I
the
know.
policeman thing, but you brought in Edmondson and Labushkin for
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, that's fair too. But there's, sometimes the best police movies are buddy cop movies, and who better of a buddy to have than Joel Edmondson and Ryan Reeves? They're buddy cops now. Like we're good. We we got some buddy cops out there.
Listen, I love Ryan Reeves for the fact that he does a lot of this and shuts guys down without having to fight. I get it. But man, for me right now, this is an opportunity with one of your top offensive guys out to see what you have under the hood with Nick Robertson. If he's that
Yeah,
hungry and pissed off, use that motivation and let him
for
rev the
sure.
engine.
And I get it. I'm just when I look at the lines, I just again, I unless you move Yarncroke down from that Matthews line right now, or because they have Bertuzzi, Matthews, Yarncroke. And you put Yarncroke on the third line and move Camp down. I could totally understand taking Holmberg out of the lineup, putting Connor Dewar as the fourth line left winger, having Camp as the fourth line center.
But just have
Putting
them switch out. Like make
Yeah,
them
I get it. I get it.
rotate switch it or face offs. That works perfectly.
Who do they play on Saturday?
They play the
Top of your
Carolina
head?
Hurricanes, which is another
Yeah.
heavy team.
It's a heavy team, but I think they're more. I would see Nick Robertson having a better game against Carolina right now than Philly, so I'm wondering if this is just a one-time thing just to get a couple guys in and see one more different look, and then you get Nick Robertson back in for Saturday and put him in there, and hope he scores a couple of goals, and that would be really great. But I kind of agree with you, James. I think Nick Robertson has played well enough that he's earned a spot, but I'm also wondering too if we sometimes do get caught up in his name value a little bit, in the Nick Robertson name value. Not saying you specifically, I'm saying some of the fan base in general.
Oh, I
Uh,
get it. For me,
yeah,
this I just see this here. You have a kid that you've been trying to figure out where he fits.
yeah,
And if you're using him as trade bait or you're trying to figure out what he is, there is no better opportunity than slapping him beside Austin Matthews and saying, "Here you go. Here's the runway you needed," and just seeing what the kid can do. Because
yeah. Well, they can't
if
trade him
he's gonna
now
cry to the media, I know. Well, they can. They can. He
in
just
the
can't play in
summer.
the NHL.
Right, yeah.
If this guy's gonna, I'm not saying cry to the media, but if he's gonna say he's unhappy, then you know what? Show me what made you so unhappy. Where's your motivation? Show me what you got. That's all I'm saying. But another guy who has shown us what he's got, and it looks like coming off of this break here, the Maple Leafs are going to have Ilya Samsonov between the pipes, which to me has Sheldon Keefe leaning in his direction, showing that he has confidence in the Russian netminder to back the blue and white, at least for right now, as a starting goaltender. And that is a telling thing to me. This goaltender here had his struggles earlier in the season. Sheldon Keefe was not one of his biggest supporters either. Threw him under the bus a couple of times, saying they needed more from him. They needed Sammy of last year. Where has this guy been? And then he goes out and he steps it up. This guy was on the waiver wire. How many teams would have loved to have snatched this guy up and put them in their net and have him as their starter because he gone 13-2? Absurd. This guy's been great. He's absolutely earned it. I get that. I love Joe Wool more, but Sammy's got the ear of the coach right now. What do you feel for Ilya Samsonov? I say tip of the cap, my friend. The redemption arc is here. Now bring me a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I said it right on this show, James. When he had those few good games right after he came back from being on waivers and being sent down, I said it. He doesn't. I'm not going to say he's all the way back to where he was, but man, is he showing signs of massive, massive improvement. And since then, I haven't watched a game where he's been the goalie, and I have missed a couple, but I haven't watched a game where he's been in net and felt worried at all.
Yeah, you don't
I have this.
cringe.
I have this sense it's completely different from the first half of the season to now. When he was in the net earlier in the year, there was this whole like he's gonna let one in here, like you could just see it, and now
Yeah,
it's
the
just
air
that's
around
not
him was
there.
just scary.
Yeah, and it's not there. He's got that sense of poise back. He's got that positioning back, and it's just he seems like he's a little bit calmer in there, and something has just kind of settled down in his brain, which I think is massive because that was clearly what it was. So I said it. I said it at that moment a few weeks ago when he came back that I think it's his crease to run with if he's going to continue to play this way until we see some sort of the next crumbling or whatever you want to call it, the next falter until that happens. I think it's his crease. And Joe Wall has been great, but again, it's almost like that Simone Benoit thing. It's a good problem to have having Joe Wall, just kind of biding his time. And we have to remember too, he's technically still coming back from an injury that could linger. So having him kind of just bide his time, and then eventually, again, when it's his time to shine, he will come back in and be good. But I think it's Sammy's. They're paying him more money. He's the older goalie. Oh, not Martin Jones, but he is the older
Yeah,
goalie.
no, I get it.
He was in the playoffs last year. So was Joe Wall, but Sammy was our guy last year. So I think you have to absolutely give him the chance and keep running with him until he shows signs that he can't do it again.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to falter, to be honest with you. I really think that he wants to show that a Russian machine never breaks
Yeah.
and that he wants a contract. He wants a nice, fat,
I mean,
juicy
yeah, that's
contract, whether it's with the Leafs or
yeah.
otherwise. And
End of the
that's
day.
got to be his
Yeah.
motivation.
He's in a contract year too, so this is a big year for him. He needs to be in there, and I'm sure he wants to show that. That's a great point.
So we'll see what happens there. The injuries are starting to mount, though, for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we have Mitch Marner out with a knee injury. They're calling it lower body. Someone slipped and did say it was a knee. So we know that for sure. He tweaked something. I guess they didn't reveal the results of the MRI, but he's not playing tomorrow. Now he's listed week to week. So, hey, you know what? Let him rest. Let him heal up. He's not chasing any huge milestones. That is what it is, man, for me, for Mitch Marner. Another one is Austin Matthews with that heavily taped wrist. I don't like seeing that. We all know what happened last year, and the comments that came out that he played with half of a wrist for most of last season, that concerns me because we're about to need him in the most important part of the year. And if there's any inkling that that wrist has any issues like it did last year, shut him down. If the Leafs are comfortably in a spot, or you can give them a couple of weeks just to rest it. I don't care about 70. I don't care about 60. I care about the big shiny mug, and Max Domi said it in the middle of the season. This team is not worried about individual rewards. No one in this room cares about an individual reward. We only care about the Stanley Cup. And if that is really what you care about, then Matthew, sit her down and take her easy. Jake McCabe, same thing, needing maintenance days. Start subbing these guys out. If we have so much of a glut of defense, start subbing out the guys that are banged up that are going to be important when it starts to matter. But there's a lot of guys that I know that are nicked up that you don't hear much about. But Matthews and Marner, to me, those are your two supposed gotta be workhorses for the playoffs. Get them rested, get them ready, and get them going.
Yeah, it was the same conversation we had not that long ago with John Tavares. That whole when it looked like he was wincing during that one game, and there was kind of swirling rumors that he was actually playing hurt, but then he came out and said he wasn't, and we had the same conversation. This is not the type of year where you need to push through things. Uh, they have a bit of a cushion, like you kind of mentioned. Let somebody rest. We have all this other depth apparently that we have. Nick Robertson's waiting to get in the lineup, like a guy like that. Noah Gregor's sitting out right now, and he's more than capable of filling in for a little bit. So like things like that. If the sports, I said this again with John Tavares, and I still believe it. If the sports science team is so massive with the Maple Leafs, and
Yep.
they know all this stuff, and they're apparently the best sports science team and sports doctors in the league, why are we pushing guys through injuries at this point? There's no need. I'm not going to say a playoff spot is locked up already, but They're sitting okay at the moment. Like there's not an immediate concern. If
You
you
have a
need to,
6-point cushion over the Tampa Bay Lightning,
yeah,
which means to me, or a 6 or 8 point cushion over Tampa Bay. You can sit some guys and allow that team to get a little closer. You also have what's called games in hand. So
yeah.
why not use those?
I would say like it right now at this exact moment, if there is a guy like Austin Matthews who has some small injury, regardless, give him 5 games off. 5 right now. Like give him 5 games. There's no need to push him through this next 2 weeks or 3 weeks of games, uh, unless there is a very, very concerning playoff, like they're going to fall out of a playoff spot. But you got Philly.
You're
You,
so far away from that, it's not even funny. Like Tampa's the
yeah,
only real threat here. So
yeah.
you're not going to
So
lose your wild card spot either. So to me, just rest guys, man. I want this to be a good playoff run.
yeah.
That's all.
Yep, I'm on board with that. And I'll just say if this sports science team that the Leafs have is all it's cracked up to be, I just don't see why for now the last 2 or 3 years we've heard these stories of guys pushing through injuries when I feel like they didn't really need to. And I'd love to hear the stories behind that, but we never will. So there we go.
No, I fully agree with you. So last thing that we're going to talk about today is the Arizona Coyotes. There is some crazy things happening right now. There is a vote that goes down tomorrow, the auction of the land to be approved. But there's some things that are coming out. And shout out to my boy, Steve Peters, who's down there, who covers the Arizona Coyotes. And he does all the work. They're having the president of the Coyotes on tomorrow for their show. So they'll get some concrete information, but it does sound like 3, maybe more years of Mullet Arena will be something. The win auction should be around May 15th to 31st. They haven't, the land, by the way, is flooded. So they have to fix the flooding issue before they even build the building and
Yeah,
then make
imagine
sure that
that.
the flooding issue doesn't happen again.
Imagine that. There's a freaking flood in the desert in the one area, in the desert, in the one area that they
That
want
they
to
want
build
to
this
build.
arena. What?
And the other thing is they have to install all the infrastructure. So that's sewage, waterways, everything. There's nothing there right now for this arena to go into. There's nothing for it to hook into right now. All of that has to be planned, built, put together by engineers before even a shovel hits the ground. So think about that. That is a long process. I'm going through a build right now of a small house for my grandfather, and the hoops that we have to jump through to be able to do sewage, to be able to build a friggin' foundation is insane. I couldn't imagine having to put in all of this different stuff underground that's not even there, all that infrastructure. It's nuts. But then it gets better. They have to build the arena by 2027, which is the earliest it'll probably be done, which means the team would have to stay in Mullet till 2027, which is insanity. Insanity. Listen, and I said to my guy, Steve, I said, Steve, I love the fact that they stay at Mullet for, a bunch more years because I want to get down there to a game to see it in that building. That is a goal of mine. I want to see NHL hockey there. I think it'd be cool, that intimate arena, just to see how it actually is, right? The
Yeah,
shadows, the old time feel. I would love to see it. I think it's a cool niche thing that most fans should experience because
yeah.
you won't ever get to again once
My
this goes
brother
down.
my brother lives down there, so if you need a place to stay, just let me know. I can hook you up.
Well, listen, I will definitely take it up. But for me, this screams, I saw on the Rod Peterson show, shout out to my boy Rod, the show that you produce, that many people believe this team is going to be in Utah next season. We shall see. There hasn't been a firm inkling if that's going to happen. But when we did talk to Steve about these issues around the Arizona Coyotes, he did say there are the options of buying land, building the arena. There is the option of the Jazz owner, not the Jazz owner. Help me out here. The Phoenix Suns owner, Ishmael, whatever his name is. Sorry, not
Yeah,
trying to be disrespectful. Don't remember the top of my head. But he may buy the team and put them in with the Suns and then do all their thing. But then, of course, there's the Utah. There's also the, hey, maybe we go to Texas because there's a team that might want to go there. There's lots of different things swirling around this team. What I would like for Arizona Coyotes fans, and for all the jokes and TikToks and fun things we make about this team, Clark, I would like some clarity for Arizona Coyote fans, because this
Yeah.
sucks. Losing your team, if it's going to lose, just tell me. Let me know so I can start to just process that and become a Maple Leaf fan, because that's what you need to do if you're losing your team. Just come over to us. We're used to suffering, but we do it together, and our team isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. And they have two Arizona kids on their team. So kind of a perfect spot, right?
It's like you're just switching home bases.
Yeah. I really do believe that the best plan of action for the league itself is to put this team in Utah next year as a test run for Utah. Keep it the Arizona Coyotes if you have to. But put it in Utah, test out the building, get a good lay of the land, see how the fans react to it there, and then Utah buys a team for the next expansion window with Atlanta. And I think you want to do a team in the West and a team in the East. That's perfect for expansion. Do two teams at one time. That would be exciting as heck if you did two teams at the same time. It hasn't happened in over, what is it, 20 years, when the Wild and
Yep.
the Wild and the Thrashers came in, and that I think they
It
did
would
it at the
be
same
a
time, right?
boatload of fun, my buddy.
Yeah, it would be huge for content. I mean, players would be flying all over the place in terms of movement. With the amount of movement we saw with the Seattle draft and with the Vegas draft, with guys making teams making trades to either protect certain people or not protect certain people, or the Jared McCann situation for the Leafs, for example. Imagine two teams at the same time with teams trying to protect guys and whatever else. So I think that would be really, really good for just the league. And then at the same time, you put the Coyotes back into a major league arena, which again, I agree with you. I think the junior rink or the college rink is kind of a neat experiment, but for 4 years, 5 years, like I know that was kind of already the plan. Like that came out a while ago that they could be there for 5 years. I just feel like that's not the best. Like put them in Utah as a test run, test Utah out, keep them as the Arizona Coyotes, and move them back if you have to. But man, just like I don't know. Like you said, I feel bad for the fan base that does exist because they just deserve an answer. They deserve something.
I just want some finality on this, man. It's
Yeah.
been this story for a very, very long time. And no disrespect to any Arizona Coyote fan. Thank you for giving us Matthews. Thank you for bringing us Nyes. Because without you being there,
And
these
Shane
players
Doan.
would not exist. And Shane Doan, of course, on their front office. So,
Yeah.
Yoke fans, we're not against you.
And
We
Brad
just, as much
Treliving.
as you do, want an answer. We want to know
Brad
what's going on.
Treliving. Yeah,
And
Brad
Tree Living,
Treliving
yep.
was the assistant GM there for a while. So
We just want to figure out what's going on. But Leafs Nation, I want to say I'm sorry that we haven't done a show in a couple of weeks. Last week, I lost a little part of my little Leafs Nation at home here. My little Cocker Spaniel lady had her for 18 years. So imagine that. Pretty much, a full run adult was with me for that long. Had to let her go last week, so it was rough. So I didn't feel like doing much of anything last week at all. I wanted to bury my head in the sand and just be an emotional dolt about it. So I gotten over it as much as I can. I miss her every single day. But at the same time, I thank you guys very much. You've come out tonight in droves. The number is the highest I've ever seen it for us doing a live recording. Well over 100 people in here watching us right now talk about the Maple Leafs live. Just on Twitter alone. So that doesn't include YouTube. So we appreciate you showing up and showing out. And thank you very much for all the kind words. But Leafs Nation, you know what it is around here. Clark, it's Offside Hockey Talk, where the Maple Leafs and hockey come to talk.